Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Batwoman. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously, Angelique was taken by the False Face Society, so it is a situation of both the Crows as well as Team Batwoman is doing everything they can to try and save her. But it's a situation where Sophie isn't telling Ryan everything, which it's understandable. It's like, you're civilian, leave this to us, kind of, we're the trained professionals in this situation. But Ryan decides, well, Sophie's not really going to help us, we'll kind of cover things on our own. So Ryan, as Batwoman, interferes with and stops one of the cars, because this is dealing with how the False Face are collecting their supplies, or basically getting people in cars kind of driving, and obviously you only get a certain amount of information at certain points throughout the entire operation. So, and it turns out, sadly, the person she ends up stopping ends up being Sophie, so she kind of blew Sophie's operation. But to be fair, it's also because Sophie didn't let literally anyone know, because apparently Jacob nor none of the Crows knew what she was up to. This was just kind of like her own operation, and to be fair, she wasn't on the best of terms. Like, well, I guess she didn't feel the need to let Batwoman know what she was up to. If she had let Ryan know what she was up to, they probably would have planned a little more accordingly. But it's like, we didn't know that you stole this car. She's like, yeah, like, we had the person arrested whose car this was, and I ended up being, I made it so that I ended up being a replacement. So it's like, this is all on you. So I'm sure that doesn't sit well with Ryan, especially considering it's like, yeah, this is all for Angelique's sake. And then obviously you have Sophie going back to headquarters and getting chewed out because you have that Tarakov, that dude. It seems like he doesn't like the way Sophie went about things, but Sophie doesn't like the way he handles things, because he's the go in guns blazing type. But then Jacob kind of chews her out, because it's like, I get it, you're a witness, you promised to protect them, and obviously she ended up getting kidnapped, so you're going above and beyond trying to save her. So it's like, but I don't want you to basically catch a bullet for someone like Angelique. She made her choice, which is sad, because it's like, no, she walked away from this, but she ended up being dragged into this as well. Like, she's still kind of, she's still a victim in all of this. But Jacob's not in the right mindset at the time, obviously. And so he's lashing out at Sophie, but it does come from a place of concern, that he does care about her, and he doesn't want anything to happen to her after everything, after, Alice, after Kate. I think Sophie's the closest thing he has to it. Well, a daughter, what you could also be like, well, yeah. Well, also, let's not forget, like, him and Mary aren't in a good place right now, so that's probably why he's trying to, like, keep his pseudo-daughter around and probably be on better terms with her, considering. But then him yelling at her this episode kind of screwed the pooch on that. So, like, yeah, he's kind of got no one now, especially because, well, Sophie might be a little more forgiving. Granted, Mary's not, so who knows. So there's that aspect, and Sophie, kind of complaining, ends up turning to Ryan, but Ryan's like, hey, I can be the one, I can be the driver, which obviously she was like, no way, I'm not going to get you involved in this. But it's like, we both kind of let Angelique down, so we both need to jump on this really quickly. I love that Mary ends up supplying the car, which is pretty dope. And it's also like, yeah, if there's a scratch on it, both of our bodies are going to be in the trunk. And also, I really like that this episode showcases just how, like, it's something Javicia had said about Ryan, like, I think during DC Fandom, that she's kind of a little quirky and a little dorky. And I feel like this episode really showcases how dorky she can be, like, with the car. She's like, oh my god, like, and especially, like, the whole Luke thing, I love it, where it's just kind of like, he's like, Ryan, right? I was like, right, you guys have to pretend like you don't know each other. And she's like, yeah, no problems, Larry. And then Sophie looks at her and says, Luke. And she's like, yeah, Luke's, no problem, sorry. And it's like, yeah, the moment Sophie leaves and everything, it's like, I like that a lot. But also it's like, okay, and this is the new AI. And she's like, what? The new AI? It's like, you didn't notice the new AI I installed along with the paint job? She's like, I thought my driving skills were just that good. It's like, he's like, yeah, no. And just like her just being like, almost like, oh god, I thought I was killing it, but apparently not. So But also he tells her to be careful around Sophie, like all this lying and stuff like that isn't good, because eventually it is going to get to the point that Sophie is going to pick up on her being Batwoman. But Ryan's justification for it is simply like, she just looks at me as someone who's lucky not to be in jail. So for her, it's almost like that thing of, it would never even cross Sophie's mind to even think I'm Batwoman. Once again, kind of like that Clark Kent thing of like, I'm not necessarily unassuming, but I'm a criminal in her mind. It's like, oh, like there's no way I could be Bat. It's almost kind of like that. I think that was Ryan's thought process. Obviously, and it's also, I think this speaks volumes too, that on her phone, Sophie's Crofy, but on Sophie's phone, she's just simply Ryan. So I think that kind of speaks volumes just about how Ryan sees Sophie and still sees Sophie a certain way. But despite their issues and stuff like that, Sophie, I feel, I don't know, maybe that just shows you how professional Sophie is, or maybe that is just like how she views Ryan, that Sophie doesn't have as much of a negative view of Ryan as Ryan believes she does. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, it could actually be a combination of the two. But also, once again, like when she was like testing it out, she's like, yeah, come on guys, it did like a 360, Fast and the Furious Gotham drift. Even later on when she's celebrating after operation, it's like, who's the best driver in Gotham? Yeah, it's me. Sophie, come on, bow down to you, girl. It's like, you're such a dork, and I love it. You're such an adorable dork. But the fact is, the operation went without fail because they were able to luckily put the tracker on because of the AI driving, which I thought would have been literally an AI driving, but it's like, no, it just allowed Luke to take the steering wheel, and then obviously, sadly, the Crows showing up shooting at them like they did, so and that could have gone bad, But by the time they get back from everything, it turns out Sophie, because this is personal for Sophie, she's not going to get any more people dragged into it. Now that she knows where Angelique is, she feels the need of, like, I need to be the one responsible for this. So she goes at it alone. Black Mask captures her. And he ends up bringing up, what I thought was interesting, which he still brings up, he's hinting at what he had told Batwoman about the previous Batwoman and the Crows being responsible for his daughter's death. Like, but beyond, it's like, lack of coordination on your front, because it's like, right, you still don't know what I told her. So, and he does kind of hint to like, oh yeah, he has an eye on like the Crow activities. It's like, well, maybe the last time he was there, he planted some stuff. I mean, to be fair, he's a contributor, a benefactor of the Crows, so it's like he probably gets a lot more updates that way, maybe. Or maybe it's just he has his own, like, means of keeping an eye on them and what they're up to. It could be both. But luckily, Batwoman shows up in time. But what was really surprising to me is, and I think maybe most interpretations of him show, because once again, going by like the Birds of Prey version, he was just like a crime boss. He wasn't like a fighter, but he was kind of holding his own against Ryan. I thought was interesting, even landing a heavy blow against her. But I was like, oh, you could fight? Like, because the only video game I'm aware of he's in is Batman Arkham Origins, because I think he's the main antagonist of that. I've never played a lot of it, only know some, so I'm assuming it's he's not like a regular, like, oh, like how at the beginning of Arkham City as Bruce Wayne, you knock Penguin out like it's nothing. Like, I don't think it's that type of situation. Maybe it is. Maybe he's typically a fighter in the comic books or something, but like, he just wasn't one in Birds of Prey, like I said, so I probably have that, like, in Birds of Prey and a Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Can't forget the full title. But maybe it's just because I have that version of the character in my head that I don't know. I'm curious about it. I have to probably do some research and see if he's typically a skilled fighter or not. But I mean, he was holding his own until like Sophie bataranged him in the back. Which I even love that line of being like, oh, like he's like, honestly, it's terrific branding, but next time might want to actually bring a gun to a gunfight. Which are obviously not something too many, bats do, except, depends on certain continuities. I think Thomas did in Flashpoint, if I'm not mistaken. I think he uses as a gun. Regardless, but because he has Angelique, they sadly had to let him go. And I just love him being like, yeah, sorry about the holdup. Mondays, am I right? It's like the snarky comments he makes is so crazy. It's like, okay, now I want you to test these out. And she's like, nah, I'm clean. He's like, come on. And it's like, oh, you don't even know if this is a good batch. He's like, you're a constant disappointment. And it's like, but I can help you find Ocean. So he just kind of letting her do her thing for now. Sadly, Ryan should have listened to Luke, because as we see at the end, Sophie got suspicious when she checked out the car, found a device, and I guess it was recording, everything going on in the car. I guess it acted as their communication. Well, because they also had comms, but maybe the comms were connected to the AI as well. But whatever the case may be, it recorded a conversation about the Batmobile, the bat suit. And then Sophie's like, oh my God. Because now it's like, this is the second time you've been fooled. I mean, because that's also another thing too. Like, Luke was right, because she did find out pretty early on that Kate was Batwoman. It's just then she kind of she was like second guessed herself. But she guessed it pretty early on. But obviously this completely blindsided her, because she never expected it to be Ryan. And now probably in her mind it's like, that actually makes a lot of sense. Why Batwoman showed up when she did, because Ryan doesn't really trust me. So now it kind of explains why Batwoman feels a way about me the way she does, like considering my relationship with Ryan. And I think that's going to be interesting. Like I said, I think she has a different perspective on Ryan than Ryan thinks. But I think this is going to change everything now that she knows. It's like, and that's the really interesting thing is going to be like, because the way they set Sophie's story up, it almost seems like it's implying like she's not going to be with the Crows the entire time. Either she's going to leave and become part of Team Batwoman, which I would think they could use her expertise and stuff like that. But once again, she could end up playing like the Commissioner Gordon to to this dynamic. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what. Maybe she'll go more in the private investigating sector. I'm about to say I don't see her going working with GCPD, because the Crows might be corrupted, but Jesus, it's GCPD. There's a good chance there's corruption in that. I mean, the sad thing is, when is there not corruption in the GCPD? Sadly, So I don't know. I'm curious to see where Sophie's story goes now that she does know, and how she's going to react. I don't see her telling anyone. I actually, in fact, see her kind of covering for Ryan, because she actually sees the good that Ryan does, because Ryan's also continuing Kate's legacy. So I think that's why she's not going to stop her, because it's like, we might butt heads from time to time, but the fact of the matter is you're still doing a good job, and I still, she's always believed in Batwoman as a symbol, so I think she's going to be a lot more supportive than most people are. She always has been. But what's interesting is that Terekhov dude picking up some of her blood samples, which is bad because she was arrested, so Ryan's DNA is in the system. So the moment they run it, they're going to find out it's Ryan. But I think that's where Sophie's going to come into play, and she's going to play interference on that regard. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where things kind of go on that front. And on the other side of things, we have the whole situation with Alice and Evelyn. And that what really shocked me the entire time, I was like, the way Evelyn was acting, I was like, I guess when your whole thing is about manipulating and controlling people, that when that control's kind of taken from you, you kind of, like, she just seems so, like, passive, like, whoa, and she was trying so hard to convince Alice not to go down this route, because it's like, getting rid of Ocean was one thing. That was some, like, I don't know if they ever explained, like, how long she was on Coriana. Like, however long that was, they probably built that relationship over, like, a year, maybe a couple months, maybe. But it's like, that's a couple months of wiping someone that, yes, they played a part in kind of shaping your foundation, your personality a little bit, because he was trying to stray you away from your need for revenge. Getting rid of Kate was going to be something else, because this is your twin. This is someone who's so integrated in you, who's been a big part of you, both the good and the bad, in the sense that, like, she's always been a driving force for a lot of your actions. So getting rid of that foundation was going to basically warp your personality in ways we don't know. Like, she acts as your glimmer of humanity. You take that away, you're just given to all your dark impulses. And she looks at the dead, like, Evelyn's patient she had killed early in the episode. It's like, yeah, wouldn't want to see that, would we? Because no matter what she did, though, Evelyn tries to take her deeper into her subconscious, and she's in the car. I'm wondering if that's supposed to be the day of the accident. They didn't go into it, but maybe it's just some drive. But Kate ends up taking a picture of them, and for her, it's like, I see you a certain way, and I wish you could if you could only see yourself the way I do. Like, the fact is, seeing that you have good in you, that you have so much love to give. But for her, it's like, I didn't, like, I'm just someone who's always been filled with bitterness and jealousy and anger, saying that like, my brain has always been messed up, it just got worse, which I think is kind of sad. Like, we don't know if there's any real truth to that, because we never got to spend a lot of time with Beth when she was younger, you know? We only got to really know her as Alice, and obviously everything she went through with Cartwright, but it's like, other than that, we never really got to, I mean, because even then you can't call, because she was in a hostage situation, so it was kind of like her forming herself into Alice to kind of compensate for the trauma she was going through. So we don't know if there's any validity to that. It could easily just be Alice saying that now just to make it easier so she could cut those ties. So she tries to make her sister disappear. It's like, I did it. But then Ocean's like, oh, hey, look at you. So angry, such a manipulator. And it's like, and Kate pops up and it's like, oh, she's silly, isn't she? And she's like, no, it doesn't make any sense. I got rid of you. And I think it's like, no matter what she does, Kate is so ingrained in her that it's impossible to completely sever that. It's like, you know, as Evelyn tried to say, like, she's not a cancer that needs to be cut out, you know? So, and then obviously there's also the aspects, okay, if Ocean's here, that means, like, the fact is I have to get rid of him first, but it's like, well, obviously that means you're capable of caring and stuff like that. It's like, oh, really? Then why I killed him? And then immediately I was like, I completely forgot about Coriana, because I was like, you didn't kill him, you faked it. Like, what are you talking about? Are you just not letting Evelyn know? And then as the episode went on, I was like, right, on Coriana, right, to get Kate back, this is before you found out that Sophia never had Kate, you stabbed him, right. And then, because at first when he does pop up on, and even she's like, is this real? Because at first she's like, whoa, that happened fast, because it's like, she wakes up and on top of him, and it's like, oh God. She's like, is this really my subconscious? Why am I in, like, Ocean's sex dream? And then obviously he's chastising her for, why'd you kill me? Why'd you do this? He bursts in the room and he has a gun pointed at her, and it's like, he wants answers about why she did what she did. And it's like, I wanted my sister back. And it's like, well, do you regret it? Before even give an answer, she attacks him. And in that moment, Evelyn makes her escape. It's like, okay, I'm going to do what Sophia told me not to. And bam, I'm giving you all your memories back. I'm surprised you can just do that. If Sophia finds out, isn't she going to be super pissed at you? But I guess Evelyn's just going to use his opportunity to disappear. I'm curious, you know, since Julia did just, you know, it's like, Julia made the decision to leave. Granted, obviously, that was Evelyn getting inside of her head. But I guess that's why she was so cool, calm, and collected, because she knew this was all going to happen, because Ocean talked about the fact is that he had called up Evelyn because, like, obviously, like, he was here on a mission and was calling her up, and she's like, yeah, I think I'm being tracked by someone. And he knew it was Alice, and Evelyn probably knew it was Alice too, so she probably only had to bide her time until Ocean showed up for stuff to kind of go her way. So she was probably faking, like, oh no, I'm so scared, but knew she was in complete and utter control the entire time. Like I said, just who she is, you would just think. That's why, like, her kind of panicking, I thought was interesting, but it's like, no, she's always been, she seems like the type that enjoys being in control, so seeing her kind of out of control, but it's like, oh, no, you were in control the entire time, so if you're not out of control, you're not in control. Sorry. So now they're kind of walking and discussing, you know, the whole aspect of, well, Alice did burn all the desert roses, and it's like, oh, doesn't she have actually any extra seeds or something hidden anywhere? It's like, no, never felt like we had a reason or need to, because they've been our legacy for so long. And so you know, changed all that by coming to an island, and Alice being like, yeah, put that on my wall. It's kind of like almost like a badge of honor. Like, yeah, I destroy those plants that have kind of been a part of this island's legacies for centuries, you know. So I'm pretty dope. But it turns out he's there for the plant that Batwoman has, and it's like, right, that's why she didn't die of kryptonite poisoning. So that's his ultimate mission, because if they can get that one desert rose back, they can replenish the rest of the island. That's definitely going to be interesting, considering, hey, Black Mask is going to want Ocean, which if he's with Alice for now, that means those paths are going to cross. I'm curious what that's going to look like and be like when Black Mask and Alice, like, two, let's face it, nut jobs meet. Like, what's that going to look like? I think at that point, like, all worlds are going to collide, like, because, like, so many things are happening at once. Like I said, Sophie knows that Ryan is Batwoman. They have Batwoman's DNA. I don't know if they're going to, like I said, Sophie's probably going to have to find out on her own, or maybe they let it slip in front of her that they do. And like I said, that's how she steps in. But we see Ocean and Alice do their thing. But it's like, Ocean's here for the desert rose that Batwoman has. And, you know, Black Mask wants Ocean, so it's like everybody wants something. Like, everyone's kind of after someone during all this. It's kind of a giant loop of just connections of just everyone after everyone. And I'm like, I'm so curious to see how that ultimately ends up playing out, where ultimately it all ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, low light to the force, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.